Hello dear student, welcome to the second lesson in syntax. Today's lesson is going to be about parts of speech, which is of course based on, as you can see, on Carnie 2013 chapter 2. So words and why they matter to syntax. The words, parts of speech, also known as syntactic category or words class, is very important in syntax. So the most important parts of speech are nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and prepositions. So parts of speech tell us how a word is going to function in the sentence. So for example, this sentence in one, we can substitute words for the type noun for the second word in the sentence. All right. So the man loved peanut butter cookies. The puppy loved peanut butter cookies. The king loved peanut butter cookies. As you can see, we could or we can substitute man with puppy, king. So these words can replace each other and still the sentence is grammatical. All right. So, but we cannot substitute words that are not nouns, as in the example 2. The green loved peanut butter cookies. The inn loved peanut butter cookies. The sing loved peanut butter cookies. These are not nouns, so they cannot replace each other. All these sentences are ungrammatical. So how do we determine the parts of speech? How do we determine what is a noun, what is a verb, what is an adjective, what is okay? So there are problems with the traditional definitions of part of speech, such as a noun is a person, a place or thing. A verb is an action, state or state of being. So these are the traditional definitions that were given to parts of speech. But of course, as you will see, we have some problems regarding these definitions. These definitions that are based on semantic criteria are too simplistic and not very helpful. Why? Look at the example in 3. Consider this sentence in 3. The destruction of the city bothered the Mongols. So the meaning of destruction here is not a person or place or thing. It is an action. So based on the semantic criteria, this word should be a verb, but native speakers identify it as a noun. Okay, so this semantic criteria, which define a word in terms of its meaning, defines a word in terms of its meaning. Destruction here would be considered an action, so it's a verb, right? But you know, or any native speaker knows that destruction is a noun. So consider also the example in 4. Sincerity is an important quality. All right, the assassination of the prime minister. See, sincerity and assassination. So sincerity is an attribute. An attribute is a property normally associated with adjectives. But in 4a, it is a noun. So assassination is an action, but it is functioning as a noun also in 4b. So as you can see, this semantic criteria does not help in determining parts of speech. Okay, according to semantic criteria, sincerity should be an adjective, assassination should be uh, a verb because it's an action, but these two are nouns. So the examples show that it is impossible to define parts of speech based solely on semantic criteria. A word can change its parts of speech depending upon where it appears in a sentence. For example, in 5, we have Gabriel's mother is a physician. Mother here is a noun. Anteater's mother, attractive offspring. Mother here it's a verb. Okay, Wendy's mother country is Iceland. Here it's an adjective. So one word has different parts of speech, or can be different parts of speech in different positions, depending on the position it occurs. So the most striking evidence that we cannot use semantic definitions for parts of speech comes from the fact that we can assign parts of speech to words without knowing what they mean. For example, in 6, the Yinkish Dripner blocked caustically into the Nindin with the Pedips. As you can see, this sentence does not exist. Okay, this is just a hypothetical sentence. Okay, it doesn't exist. But every native speaker of English would know that the Yinkish is an adjective. All right, specifically is an adverb, and Nindin and Pedips are nouns, but they cannot tell what the words really mean. How then can you know the parts of speech of a word without knowing its meaning? So the answer is that the various parts of speech are not semantically defined. Okay, so we do not depend on the semantic criteria to define parts of speech, but we depend on where they occur in the sentence and the kind of affixes they take. Okay, we're talking about affixes, we're talking about, for example, endings. Okay, so nouns are things that appear in a noun position and take noun suffixes. Okay, suffixes are endings. So the same is true for verbs, adjectives, etc. So here are the same. Here are the criteria that we use to determine the parts of speech in sentence 6. For example, in Kish, so we have it is between the and the noun which takes ish, and this is an adjective ending. So if you look at English, you would say it's an adjective, even though this word doesn't exist. Why? Because it ends in an adjective ending. It has an adjective ending. Dripner, it occurs after an adjective and it takes er, noun ending, subject of the sentence. Okay, because this word takes an er, that is why it is a noun. Blarked, we have ed of the verb, okay, in the past. So this is, if you look at this word, you would say it's a verb, even though this word doesn't exist. The same with quotifically, li of the adverb, okay, nindin after the, so it is a noun, okay, and pidiems also is a noun, it is after the, and preposition, and it takes s of the plural. So if you look at these morphological, let's say morphological makeup of the words, these endings determine if, or okay, they determine the part of speech of the words. So this tells us that the parts of speech of a word depends on its place in the sentence and by its morphological structure and not by its meaning. Now, we're going to look at distributional criteria. The criteria we use to determine the parts of speech is based on its distribution, not meaning. And we're talking about distribution, we have two types: morphological distribution and syntactic distribution. Morphological distribution refers to the kinds of affixes in which we have prefixes and suffixes and other morphology that appear in the word. Okay, so these affixes may be derivational. We have derivational affixes, that is, they make new words out of other words. So we use derivational to derive new words. And then we have inflectional, that is, they are used for grammatical purposes, like for example plural in nouns and the ed of the past, for example. So that's inflectional morphology. So they attach to certain categories to change either in terms of inflectional to change the grammatical purpose, the grammatical function, or derivational to make new words. And then we have syntactic distribution, which refers to what other words appear near the word. For example, nouns typically appear after determiners. Okay, their syntactic distribution has to do with what comes after the other. Okay, in a language like English, for example. So note that these criteria we are going to discuss are for English only. Linguistics develop specific tests for specific languages. And then we have the major part of speech. So we are going to see nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. So having determined that we are going to use distribution criteria for determining parts of speech of a word, we'll now turn to some tests for particular lexical items. We'll limit ourselves to the major class of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and we'll look at other parts of speech in the later sections. One thing that you will notice is that these are specific to English, as we have said earlier. Every language will have its own distribution criteria. So nouns, for example, inflection, if we want to use this inflection suffix, nouns, English nouns have very few inflectional affixes. So these are those affixes that are needed for grammatical purposes, as we have said earlier. So for example, countable nouns in general take the plural suffix, which has the following forms. So we have s, as in cats, dogs, parks. Okay, so this inflectional suffix help us to determine whether cats is a noun or a verb. Okay, so s is for nouns, the plural nouns. Es, as in dresses, houses, watches. Okay, so es also is an inflectional affix that's used for nouns. En, as in oxen, it's a noun. En, as in children. Okay, so these are noun suffixes. And then we have derivational suffixes. These are suffixes that are added to existing words to form nouns. So their presence in a word marks it as a noun. Here are a few of them. We have ens, as in relevance, importance, guidance, ent or ent, as in resident, correspondent, accountant, all right? And then we have er or or, as in teacher, doctor, footballer, meant, as in astonishment, judgment, establishment, ness, as in kindness, lightness, quickness, and t, as in ability, honesty, and hostility. Okay, hostility. So these are just a few of the derivational suffixes that mark English words as nouns. So let's move on. Now we have talked about morphological distribution, in which we talked about inflectional affixes and and derivational. Okay. Now let's move on to syntactic distribution. So nouns can be identified according to where they occur in a sentence or in sentences. So we can get an idea of the part of speech of a word belongs to that a word belongs to by looking at the kind of words that occur near it. For example, nouns can appear after determinants like a, the, this, my, as in this, my car. So we can say the car, this car, my car. So this position in which car is or occurs helps us to determine that car is a noun. Okay, it occurs after the determiner. Nouns can come after adjectives. For example, the red car. Okay, so we know that nouns come after the adjective. So even if you don't know that car is a noun, automatically when you say the red car, it's a noun. Okay, that's the position of nouns. So nouns can appear as subjects in a sentence. Okay, in English, subjects come before the verb, as in the secretary has posted the letter. So secretary, automatically it's a noun because it occurs in the subject position of a sentence. So they can also appear as the direct or indirect objects in sentences. For examples, she gave the money to the old woman. Okay, so we have the money and then we have woman, indirect and direct objects. We can negate nouns with no. For example, no man, no water, no insurance. Okay, we don't say no go or something, so we don't use no with verbs. Okay, so we use it with nouns. Um, one easy way to determine if a word is a noun is to replace it with another word which is clearly a noun. I saw people running all over the place. I saw John running all over the place. So people, we can replace it, for example, with John, okay, and then this sentence is still grammatical. Okay, so because these nouns replace each other. And now let's move on to verbs and use the same criteria we have established, that is morphological and syntactical, and then we see how to determine parts of speech. So concerning verbs, there are certain suffixes that mark words as verbs in English. Some of them are ate, as in decorate, perforate, imitate, en, as in darken, broaden, strengthen, ify, as in identify, crucify, okay, glorify, eyes, okay, depending eyes or eyes in British or American accent, as in regularize, legalize, nominalize. So these are the suffixes that are used to determine verbs. And of course, they are derivational because we use them to create new words, to form new words. Inflectional suffixes. Verbs can inflect for tense. In English, there are two tense forms. We have present and past. So if the verb is in the present tense and its subject is singular, it takes the marker S. For example, the girl plays football, S of the present. Okay, that's something we use for verbs. But if the subject is plural, there is no marker of the verb. For example, the girls play football. So there is agreement between the verb and the subject, which is girls. In the past tense, regular verbs in English take the suffix ed, as in the teacher talked, okay, talked to the student about their homework, okay. The talked without hyphen. I only added hyphen to show that you mean to locate or spot the word that is important in this sentence. So verbs also take aspect markers such as the ing, ending, used to mark the progressive aspect, and the participial form en. Okay, we say, for example, let's see if we have some examples. Okay, so we don't have examples. I can give you some example. You can say uh, in okay, verbs, for example, going to takes aspect markers such as the ing, ending. Going to movies is, sorry, okay, the progressive aspect and participial, and proven, for example, something like this, proven. So it's a verb we add to make this participial form. And then we have syntactic distribution. Verbs in English can follow auxiliary verbs such as be, is, am, was, were, have, and has, and the modal auxiliaries such as well, would, shall, should, can, could, for example. So for example, the boy can operate the machine. So the verb operate follows the modal can. Okay, verbs follow their subject and precede their objects in English. For example, the woman carried the baby. The woman is the subject of the sentence and it is followed by the verb carried. The verb comes before its object, the baby. All right, so this is very important to pay attention to when talking about verbs and their syntactic position in sentences. So we can negate verbs with not. For example, Kofi did not eat his lunch. So the negative morpheme not precedes the verb eat in this example. From what we have said about the syntactic distribution of verbs in English, we can say that any word that can occur in the slot below is a verb. So I have the woman, the children in the class. Any verb or any word that comes here is a verb automatically. So now we can see that based on the syntactic position of word, we can determine that either it's a verb or noun, or in this case, it is a verb. Now let's move on to adjectives. Inflectional affixes regarding adjectives have the following morphological properties. So they can take the suffix the suffix is er and est to inflect for the comparative and superlative. So for example, tall, taller, tallest to make the comparative and superlative. So these inflection affixes, morphological affixes help us to determine that a word is an adjective. Some adjectives follow words like more and most to show that comparative and the superlative. For example, beautiful, more beautiful, most beautiful. We're talking about long words. These also more and most, the words that come after more and most are, uh, are adjectives. So they are negated with the morpheme "an", for example, uncomfortable, unkind, unhelpful. All right. So these "and" also, when you say a word that starts with "an", automatically uh, it is an adjective, and this is based on its inflectional suffix or prefix in this case. Derivational affixes. English adjectives have such derivational suffixes. Able, as in readable, teachable, comfortable. Is, as in childish, selfish. Okay, sorry, here it's ish. Sorry, not is, but it's ish. All right, let me correct that. So it's ish. Okay, so ish as in childish, selfish. All as in national, colonial, official. Less as in helpless, fearless, and many more words. Syntactic distribution. Now let's move on to the syntactic distribution. In English, adjectives typically occur between determiners like a, the, this, these, my, and nouns. For example, the tall girl, the old buildings, a wicked parent. So as you can see, adjectives, they occur between determiner and the noun. So their syntactic position helps us to determine that a word in this examples, for example, in this example is an adjective. Adjectives can be modified by the word very. For example, very old, very tall, very comfortable. So any word that comes after very mostly is, it is attached to it is an adjective. Okay, based on their syntactic distribution. And then we have adjectives can also occur in the slot here. So if you look at this slot, the very nice book, for example, the very big book. So any word that comes in this slot is an adjective automatically. All right, so let's move on to adverbs. Derivational affixes. The derivational suffixes that adverbs take is "ly", for example, slowly, swiftly, and suddenly. Inflectional suffixes. Adverbs generally don't take any inflectional suffixes. However, on rare occasions, they can be used comparatively and follow the word more. She went more quickly than he did. So adverbs typically don't take the prefix "an" or unless the adjective they are derived from does first. So if we have the adjective they are derived from is, for example, unhelpful, then we can say unhelpfully from unhelpful. Okay, but not unquickly because we don't have unquick. So it should all first these words should first have this "an", have their adjective should start with "an". Okay, this "an" morphological or this "an" prefix, and then we can derive an adverb by adding "ly" to these words. Otherwise, it would be ungrammatical. Syntactic distribution. Syntactically, adverbs are positionally mobile, and as Carnie 2013 states, their syntactic distribution can best be described by first stating where they cannot occur. Where they cannot occur so that you can know where they occur. So they cannot appear between a determiner and a noun. For example, the car, we cannot say this. Okay, they cannot occur after the verb be and its different forms is, are, was, and were. Adverbs cannot occur in this position. They can really appear pretty much anywhere else. So now that we know places where adverbs cannot occur, so anywhere else is could be a place for adverbs. Although typically they either appear at the beginning or at the end of the clause or sentence. So frequently, like adjectives, they can be modified by the verb by adverb very. Okay, she spoke very slowly to the children, very slowly to the children. All right, to the child. Now let's move on to what is called open and closed class versus lexical and functional. So we have open, closed, and then we have lexical, functional. Open, closed part of speech. So some part of speech allow you to add neologism, that is new words. Okay, the creation or the formulation of new words is called neologism. Such parts of speech are said to be open. So there are some parts of speech that do not allow the creation of new members. These are said to constitute a closed class. So by contrast, there are some parts of speech that do not allow new forms. For example, in English, no new pronoun or preposition are being formed. We don't create pronouns or prepositions. Okay, but parts of speech, for example, we can create nouns. We can create new nouns and new verbs, okay, new adjectives, but we cannot create new pronouns and prepositions. Okay, so these pronouns and preposition form closed group. They are closed because we cannot add more to them. Open class, we can still add more words to them. So part of speech that do not allow new members where coinages are very rare are said to be a closed class. Now, anyway, so when we talk, let's go back. So when we talk about closed open class, for example, we're talking about nouns, adjectives, adverbs. So we can always come up with new words. We can just add, for example, lead, then we create another adverb, okay, slowly, for example, or any word. So if we come to new words, then we can add verbs, we can add nouns, we can add adverbs, adjectives, etc. So these are open to new, they are open they are open class, okay, but words like prepositions, okay, in, for example, out, at, pronouns he, they, etc. So we cannot create new ones. They are already we have enough, and we cannot not add more. The same thing goes with lexical and functional. So the open close distinction is similar to another useful distinction in parts of speech, which is the distinction between lexical and functional part of speech. So lexical part of speech provide the content of this sentence. We're talking about lexical, we're talking about open class. Okay, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs are all lexical part of speech. So lexical part of speech are open class, and functional part of speech are closed class. Closed class. So functional part of speech, by contrast, provide the grammatical information. As we said that in closed class we have prepositions and pronouns. So these are grammatical functions. Okay, so they only provide grammatical information. Functional items are the glue that holds a sentence together. Use it um, for linking sentences, for example. So functional categories include determiners. Okay, we cannot create more determiners. These are functional and closed class. Prepositions, complementizers, conjunctions, negation, auxiliaries, and modals. So what you need to remember from this part is that lexical uh, parts of speech are open class. We're talking about nouns, verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. And functional parts of speech are closed class. So here we're talking about determinants, prepositions, conjunctions, etc. Some functional, which are of course closed categories of English. So prepositions appear before nouns, or more precisely, noun phrases. English preposition include the following. So prepositions of English, we have to, from, under, over, with, by, at. You see, so we have so many, as you can see in the screen. All right, and then we have okay. So the class of determiners. 1 minute. So here prepositions, and let's move on to determiners, is a little broader. It contains a number of subcategories, including articles, quantifiers, numerals, adjectives, and possessive pronouns. Determiners appear at the very beginning of English noun phrases. Determiners of English, they are all referred to as the. You will find this in the later lessons in syntax. So we have articles, they, and an. We have didactic article, this, that, those, the, those, and the on. Quantifiers, many, much, all, few, little, etc. Cardinal, which are numerals, cardinal numerals. We have one, two, three, four, etc. Possessive pronouns, my, your, his, etc. And some WH questions like which and those. So these are determiners. And then we have conjunctions. These are words that connect two or more phrases together on an equal level. Conjunctions of English, referred to as conj, okay, and or, nor, neither, nor, either, nor. So these are conjunctions. So the class of and then we have also another class of uh, complementizers, also connect structures together, but the embedded or the embedded one, or they embed one clause inside of another instead of keeping them on an equal level. For example, that, for, if, either. So these embed one clause in another. We are going to see this when we are dealing with clauses. Now, what you need to remember is that conjunctions and complementizers. So what's, I mean, the words that we have in these categories. Tense categories of English, referred to as T, big uppercase T. The category T consists of auxiliaries, have, has, had, and am, as, are, was, were, so, and do. See, so have and verb to be in there, and uh, their variants. Okay, and do. Modals, well, would, shall, should, can, could. Okay, and non-finite tense marker, to. So these are the tense in English, the category of tense. And then there is one special category which contains only one word, not, which we will call negation. Okay, negation in English has not. So there are other categories that express negation: the determiners, no, any, and the noun, none. So these also express negation, but they are determiners. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Subcategories and features. So each major part of speech has subtype. Okay, subtypes. So for example, we listed 60 different kinds of determiners. So in determiners, we have articles, we have diacritics, uh, we have quantifiers, numerals, possessive pronouns, and WH pronouns. Okay, and then three kinds of auxiliaries, modals, and non-finite marker, which is two. The technical term for this subtype is subcategories. So we're talking about subcategories. We're talking about subtypes of part of speech. That is, any part of speech has certain sections, certain categories. Those are called subcategories. So we will concentrate on the subcategories of the major categories: noun, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, determiners, etc. So one way to mark subcategories is through the use of features. So we use features to mark categories or subcategories. So to distinguish among the subcategories of tense, for example, we can appeal to the feature plus minus modal and plus minus non-finite. So an auxiliary, for example, is minus modal and minus non-finite. Okay, modal is plus modal. Okay, it's a tense, of course, and it is plus modal minus non-finite. Till, for example, is plus modal plus non-finite. So this is how we distinguish these subcategories by using the features plus minus. Subcategories of nouns. We will look at nouns as along several dimensions, including plural versus singular, proper versus common, proper versus lexical noun, and countable versus mass noun. So first, let's distinguish along the line of plurality. Okay, English nouns can be either singular or plural. So the distinction between singular and plural is usually morphologically marked with one of the plural endings like as or yes, although it need not be as in nice, as in mice or deer. Sometimes we have regular, regular plurals, like irregular nouns. So most singular nouns in English require determiner. Plural ones do not require the determiners, although they allow one as the following examples show. Cat, for example, ate the spider. The cat ate the spider. We don't say cat ate the spider, we say the cat ate the spider. Okay? Or we say cats ate the spider. The cats ate the spider. So we mark this distinction with the feature plus minus plural. Okay, we say cat, for example, is minus plural, or cats is plus plural. So closely related to the plural singular distinction is the countable and the mass nouns distinction. All right. So countable nouns represent individual, countable elements. For example, apple is a countable noun. Say apple, we can add s to form the plural apple and apples. Okay. Mass noun usually don't be counted, or can't be counted. In the same way, for example, sincerity and air are mass nouns. So we say sincerity, you don't say sinceritaires or airs. Okay, these are mass nouns and countable nouns. So we don't ask to form the plural. There are two easy distributional tests to distinguish between mass and countable nouns. Mass nouns take the quantifier much, while countable nouns take many. Okay, so we say many apples. We don't say much apples or much apple. Many sincerity, no. Say much sincerity. Many air, no. Okay, so countable take many, uncountable take much. These are quantifiers that go with these two categories of nouns. So like plurals, mass nouns generally don't require a determiner, but countable nouns do. I ate apple. All right, I ate the apple. See, I ate sugar. I ate the sugar. So this is mostly, but not like a final rule or something. So this is generally. All right. He is filled with sincerity. I doubt his sincerity. Distinguish between count and must nouns, we use the future plus minus count. Word, it is plus minus count. Proper names and common nouns. Proper names are nouns like Andrew, Carnie, for example, Keoki, Mansa. We're talking about the names of person, Muhammad or John or any name that we're talking about. So these are proper names. Common nouns are all other nouns. So for the most part, proper names resist taking determinants. Andrew Carney, we don't say the Andrew Carney or the John. Okay, so we say we use them without determinants because they are uh, proper nouns. There are some exceptions to this generalization. For example, when referring to a family, it's common to say the Smiths. Okay, sometimes we use the when we're talking about family name, the family. Okay, in other languages, proper names can take determinants. For example, in some dialects of Spanish, it is okay to say La Rosa Maria, the rosemary. So we use, for example, the Smiths here when we are talking. If we have, for example, many families, okay, family names, and then we want to refer to this exact family. For example, we did something, or okay, so we say the Smiths talked about this, the Smiths, etc. So to refer to the whole family, okay, and sometimes we use it with the determiner. Pronouns and anaphors. So these classes differ from the other in that they are closed. Okay, they never allow determiners or adjectival modification. He, don't say the he, big he, okay? Himself, we don't say the himself or big himself. So these do not take any determiners or any adjectival modifications. Now, pronouns belong to the class plus pronouns minus anaphor. Okay, anaphors are plus pronouns plus anaphor. All other nouns are minus pronouns minus anaphor. We're going to see anaphors in the next lesson. Subcategories of verbs. There are really two major ways in which we can divide up verbs into subcategories. One is along the lines of tense, finiteness. Example, whether the verb is left or leaves. Well, okay, leave or to leave. So these also are, this is how do you divide verbs into the categories. Okay, whether their tense, okay, is finite or not. So the other way, that is whether they are conjugated or not. Okay, to use the the familiar word. So when we talk about finite, it means it is conjugated. Okay, unfinite, for example, it is not conjugated because we have lived, lives, well, leave. Okay, to leave. We're going to see this in the next lessons. So the other way to divide up verbs is in terms of the number of nouns, of noun phrases, in Ps, for example, and prepositional phrases, PPs, or clauses, CPs, they require. So this second kind of division is known as argument structure. Okay, we're talking about the when talking about argument structure, we're talking about the noun. Okay, a noun phrase, or so that is an NP or PP or CP that a verb can take. Okay, so the other way to divide, as you can see up, verb is in terms of the number of nouns they require. A verb, so if we're talking about intransitive, transitive verbs, a verb can or require one NP or two NPs or NP and PP. We're going to see this in the next lesson again in argument structure. So this is the argument structure. For example, Gwen hit the baseball. There are two arguments in this example, Gwen and the baseball. So Gwen and the baseball are the arguments that the hit requires. You can say that hit requires two arguments, two NPs in this case, two noun phrases. So these are elements in the word or in the world that are participants in the action described by the sentence. So the predicate here is head. Head expresses a relation between the two arguments. More precisely, it indicates that the first argument is applying some force to the second argument. When we say Gwen hit baseball, Gwen, this verb hit shows that Gwen applies some force to baseball. Another name for argument structure is valency. For example, predicates that take only one argument, we say that they have a valency of one. Okay, they have a valency of one, they have a valency of two, they have a valency of three. We can go like this. So these are predicates like smile, arrive, sit, run. So the property of transitivity refers to how many arguments follow the verb. In predicates, with a valency of 1. No arguments follow the verb. The single argument precedes the verb, so these predicates are said to be intransitive. So we're talking about set, arrive. You can say John arrived. Okay, this arrive does not need an argument in the we're talking about after the verb. Okay, because we still have an NP which is a subject, but it doesn't require an NP in the object position, for example. So these are intransitive verbs. They don't require arguments. So they have valency of 1, with a valency of 1, which is the subject argument. That's it. That's the only argument they have. One valency, or valency of 1. Predicates that take two obligatory arguments have a valency of 2. Some examples are hate, okay, love, see. You cannot use these verbs without the object. Okay, you cannot he loves. He loves what? He loves something, alright, or someone. He kissed something or someone. Admire, he admires something, for example, or admire someone. So these they require two valencies, of two arguments, valency of 2. They have a valency of 2, the object and the subject. So these predicates are said to be transitive, okay, because they have a single argument after the noun. The other argument precedes the verbs. He loved, for example, John loves Mary. So we have John and Mary. These are two arguments. So we can say that love in this, for example, sentence or any other sentence has for example, has a valency of 2. That is, requires two arguments. One that precedes the verb and the one that comes after the verb. Finally, predicates that take 3 arguments have a valency of 3. Put and give are the best example of this class. So these predicates have 2 arguments after the verb, so are said to be ditransitive. We say ditransitive was they require 2 arguments, all right, or three arguments. Sorry, they require 3 arguments and they have a valency of 3. For example, as you can see, transitivity. So when we talk about transitivity, we have intransitive verbs that require no arguments. John leaves. John left, for example. Okay, they only require the subject argument, which is necessary. So we're talking about the object here. Okay, we have transitivity, which require 2 arguments: hate, love, and kiss, for example. So we need 2. Okay, you need the argument, which is the subject, and the object. Ditransitive requires 3, okay, 3 arguments. That is, 1 which is in the subject, okay. For example, John puts an apple on the table, okay. All right, so we have 3 arguments: John and the apple and the table. 3 arguments. These verbs, we can say that put and give have valency of 3. That is, they require 3 arguments, or these verbs require 3 arguments. All right, so let's move on. Predicates impose other restrictions on their arguments too. So for example, they also place restrictions on the categories of the things that go with them. A verb like ask can take either an NP or a clause embedded sentence, CP, as a complement. For example, take can either take an NP or a clause, a sentence, okay, a sentence as its complement. For example, I asked the question, so the question is an NP, okay. All right, so it's an NP. We have the terminal, okay, and the noun. So and then we can look at B. I asked if you knew the answer. So if you knew the answer is not an NP, it's a sentence, okay. It's a CP. It's an embedded clause. All right. It's a clause. Sorry, it's not a sentence, but it's a clause. It's an embedded clause, and it functions as the complement of the verb ask. But a verb like hit can only take an NP complement. A hit Sorry, let me help you with this. This normally should be uh, like this. A hit the ball, so the ball here is an NP. Okay. A hit that you knew the answer. Okay. This sentence is incorrect because hit does not take an NP complement. Okay, so it does not take a CP. I mean, it only takes an NP complement, but no CP. Does not take CP means that complementizer clause or phrase. Okay, complementizer phrase. So these, if you that you know the answer is a phrase. Okay, and a hit. Okay, verb hit does not take a phrase as its complement. Okay, uh, it only takes an NP, as you can see in the example 25. But in 24, ask takes an NP as its complement and CP, complementizer phrase. If you knew the answer, this is a phrase. Okay, it takes an NP complement and a CP and a CP, you know, complement. Intransitives, these require a single NP subject. Okay, we'll mark this with the feature NP, and then we have the slot of intransitive verbs, where the underscore represent where the verb would go in the sentence. An example of such verb would be leave. Okay, we say John left, for example. So in these kind of intransitive verbs, they only require an NP, which is the subject, no object. Okay, so they have a valency of 1. They require one argument, which is NP subject. Most transitive verbs require an NP object, so we can mark these with the feature NP slot. We have a slot and NP. An example of this is the verb hit. John hit Mary, for example. John hit a cat. So they require these transitive verbs require 2 arguments. They have a valency of 2. Okay, an NP subject and an NP object. Ditransitive verbs come of several major types. Some transitives require 2 NPs, object to NP objects. The first is an indirect object. The other is a direct object. So the verb spare is of this category. It does not allow an NP and APP. Okay, I spared him the trouble. This one is correct. Spare the trouble to him is incorrect. Okay, so spare allows 2 NP objects, allows 2 NPs, him, which is the indirect object, the trouble, which is the direct object, but it does not allow an NP and another PP, a preposition phrase. Okay, spare the trouble to him is incorrect. To him is a PP, and spare does not uh, allow this PP in as its direct object. Only allows 2 NPs, no PPs. So this category of ditransitive is marked with the feature NP slot NP. All right. As you can see here in this chart, we have subcategories. We have verb NP in intransitive verbs. We have NP, so a verb of an NP and the verb. That's it. An NP subject. In transitive type 1, that is the verbs that require 2 arguments, valency of 2, have an NP, a verb, an NP, like hit. Ask, we have an NP, ask, an NP or CP, as we have seen in the examples earlier. So these or the verbs like ask, they require three arguments: an NP subject and an NP and CP object. Okay, or one of them. Two. Sorry, I mean two. Okay, one of them. One of the so either NP or CP, but not both. Okay. Let's see. So this is just ask is like hit. They require only two arguments. Okay, but the difference is that the object, so hit requires only an NP object and or complement, and ask requires, okay, an NP and CP complement. One of them. The spare, for example, is a ditransitive verb. It requires three uh, objects, not just two, like ask and hit. Three. That is an NP subject, an NP object, and two NP objects. Okay. Put requires also, just like spare, three uh, three arguments. Okay, three arguments. It has a valency of three. That is, it requires an NP subject and an NP object and PP object. So you can see the difference between put and spare. Both of them require two arguments on the object. So we have three arguments if we consider subject. But the difference is that spare does not require prepositional phrase, but put requires prepositional phrase. Uh, give Give also requires three arguments, NP subject and an NP object. Okay, we have one NP object and one of the two. So one NP object and another either NP or PP. Okay, and tell the transitive type 4, we have, for example, if this one requires also um, three, uh, three arguments, an NP subject and an NP object and one of NP, PP, or CP. All right. So either in the object, either an NP and PP, or an NP and an NP, an NP and a CP. Well, thank you very much. We have come to the end of this lesson, which is a little longer than the previous lessons, but still it is worth it. And this is I tried to cover most of the chapter. So thank you very much again, and I hope you enjoyed and learned from the video. And catch you guys in the next video.